Chapter 10. I have what I consider a healthy, if not awesome, respect for sharp objects in others' hands. It is a fear I never want to conquer, only temporarily to quell. Blandly I said to him, "So, you belong to NA?" I got no answer except a flinch as if I'd directed a sudden move at him. He was strung out, unpredictable. If he came at me, there was no place for me to go. The door opened in, and for all I knew, he'd latched it behind us. A single step in any direction, and I'd be cornered in the shack. Standing my ground in the center at least gave me room enough to duck to all sides, only one move in every direction, like a king in endgame. I asked, "What were you addicted to?" He still didn't speak, but he also didn't attack. Just held the knife shaking in his hand, bouncing incidental light all over my face. It was driving me clear to the edge of reason. I was going to do something stupid soon. The closest thing to grab to defend myself was a kerosene heater, heavy enough to do some damage. I could throw it at him and use the extra second to open the door and get outside. Problem was, if full of fuel, the heater might have been too heavy. "Look," I said, "I can take a hint. You want me to go, right?" "Heroin," a dead voice answered. It was my drug of choice, not my addiction. He tightened his grip on the knife, flexing ropey muscles in his long fingers. He concentrated his hand steady. "We've got these voids, empty spaces," he said. "Some of us, maybe all of us, inside us. You gotta fill it with something. People try smoke, alcohol, God, violence. You smoke, right? So maybe you understand a little. There's a poem goes, 'Water is taught by thirst.' So true. My lesson was heroin." "Was heroin?" I asked. "No more?" "Always." "What do you mean?" "Right now I'm trying always. Monday I check into St. Vincent's program again, another second chance." "A friend of mine kicked it," I said. "He belonged to NA. What's his name? Maybe I know him." "Doubt it, but Mark, an English poet out of DC. "No, don't know him." "How long he's been clean?" "Well, he's dead now. The bug." Yeah, I'm lucky so far. Sorry." While on his good side, I asked, "Is Gloria using too?" "Mistake." He flared and raised the blade higher. I leaned toward the heater, felt a muscle pull on my side. Terrific. His good eye burned sharp and fierce. "What? No way. She'll never touch it. Hates drugs. Her mom's a big cokehead living off a divorce settlement in Vermont. Gloria'd never use, and I'd never let her." "So, she doesn't have that board you were talking about?" "Hey, what do you think taking up with that asshole Ted was about? Her father booked on her and her mom when she was 7. She's still trying to fill that gap. And that's a hard nut. Maybe harder to crack than the shit. But I couldn't tell you." I said, "Hey, maybe it's none of my business, and doubly so with you waving that knife around," I thought. "But it sort of sounds like you need to take in a meeting." It made him mad, but something still held him in check. He accused, "Did you really pay $120 on my dog's vet bill?" I didn't answer. He'd seen the receipt. Anyway, what he really wanted to know was why I'd do such a thing. I didn't have an answer for that either. He tossed the knife in the air, end over end, and as it came down blade first, he gripped it by the handle and drove the knife into a bare patch of earth at his feet. He stood up straight and looked at me a long time, smoothing down his Fu Manchu mustache with opposing forefinger and thumb. "Pike means a lot to me," he said finally. "Survived last winter thanks to him. We were snowed in for 3 days and ran out of fuel for the heater. We kept each other alive." He reached into the front pocket of his jeans and pulled out my gold Rolex. He'd had it with him all along. "Here you go, man. Be careful with it. Try not to lose it again. The village ain't the village no more. It's the land of plenty of nothing." I took the gold watch in my hand. It was mine all right, but heavier than I remembered it. The crystal face lightly scuffed. The raised bubble window over the date scratched opaque. It had run down at 9:11 that morning. Jimmy walked to the shack door and opened it. Daylight flooded in. He stooped to exit. I was right behind him. Outside, squinting against the wide expanse of sky, an unmitigated blue, not a shred of cloud disturbing, my confidence returned. I said, "I need those papers back, too." "What papers?" He looked at me like he didn't know what I was talking about. I pointed at his shirt pocket, unbuttoned now. He tugged it open and showed me it was empty. The papers he'd taken off of me were gone. He must have put them in the footlocker when his back was turned to me. Guess you dropped them, he said. What do you need them for now anyway? You got your watch back. They're mine. You're too hung up on possessions, man. Look, what you went through for a fucking watch. I bet you're jealous of your woman, too. Are you jealous of Gloria and Ted? That's over, he said with certainty. Maybe she'll go back, I pointed out. He thought about it, roughing the edges of his mustache. He didn't take that bait. Maybe she will, up to her. I don't hold any claim, but I care about what happens to her. I hear you. Good. Hear this. You cut me a break on Pike's bill. Okay, I'm cutting you one on your watch. I call us even. Fair enough. This is the end. I don't want you causing Gloria trouble. More trouble, you mean? Right now, it's closing in around her. Any trouble. If I hear you did, I know where you live. I turned my back and said to the guard at large, go pick up your dog. They'll let you whenever you want. Right now, he's in a cage. They'll only board him till Tuesday. Jimmy didn't respond. I kept going. At his gate, I stopped in the shade of a crab apple tree and lit a cigarette. The Rolex still in my sweat-slick palm, I peeked down at it, then quickly put it away in my pocket. It felt awkward there, slamming against my thigh. I have an ironic paranoia, so I kept expecting to get mugged on the way back to my office. Didn't happen. Walking through Tompkins Square Park, I relaxed a little. I was glad to be surrounded by people again, enjoying the May day. And I had succeeded, at least in getting my watch back, just as I'd promised myself. Emerging at the other end of the park, I faced across the street to the coffee house where I'd begun, back at Square One. I went further back to the photo shop on Avenue A where I dropped off Ted Wiley's film. My order was ready. I'd lost the receipt along with the faxes from Matt to Jimmy's sleight of hand, but my business card stapled to the envelope made claiming it a breeze. The Vietnamese man behind the counter apologized that only 7 shots had developed. It was okay with me. After tax, it only came to $2.87. I lucked out. I couldn't have afforded any more exposures. I stuck the envelope unopened into my back pocket. I was in no rush to see the photos. Before, they were part of what I was working on. Now they were only a dead guy's last snapshots. Nothing at all to do with me. I had my watch back. I needed to get to a cash machine and replenish. There was one on 2nd Avenue, the corner of St. Mark's Place, what 8th Street is in East Village. I headed that way past a mural of tropical fish clutching steamy coffee mugs and anthropomorphized fins. Rounding the corner past a glassed-in pizza parlor, I came to a string of trendy double-duty shops, a tattoo and piercing parlor, a t-shirt and spiked leather accessory store, an astrologist palm reader, and a skateboarder's apparel and ska music distributor. None of them were open yet. Most of their business coming from late-night adventurers. As I stopped to light a cigarette at First Avenue, a man in a cherry pink leisure suit and white patent leather shoes approached me carrying a Sony Walkman and headphones. His face was the brown of greasy paper bags. He looked at me through yellow eyes and a web of red veins. Bum a cigarette, brother? Sure. Hey, I'm trying to get a bottle of wine. $2 for the radio? Sorry, I can't help you, man. And I couldn't, not with the 13 cents left in my pocket. It's liberating, though, being broke in the big city. You never feel guilty denying a handout. Taking one of my offered cigarettes, he nodded and said, go easy, brother. You too, man. Maybe it's why I still smoke, the connection it gives me to complete strangers. Always somebody looking for a light, our shared addiction, our suicide pack of cigarettes. I walked along St. Mark's Place, feeling good about myself and wondering how long that would last. I guess I'm always waiting for the other shoe to drop, and sometimes if it doesn't, I give it a nudge. Toward the end of the block, I passed the Puerto Rico Importing Company, the narrow shop crowded with customers, burlap sacks of roasted coffee beans, and the sound and smell of grinding. Out front on a pine bench, a young woman wearing a green store apron was listening to a wizened old woman holding a blue broom handle. Her white hair was like a fright wig, and the wrinkled softness of her face reminded me of whole-baked apples. The young man had short hair like a G.I. Joe and a close-cropped beard. He listened seriously to the old woman's ramblings. I wished him luck. I couldn't make any sense of her. She had a thick, mysterious accent and no teeth. Just around the corner was the entrance to the bank. Down the street hovered the neon marquee for the Orpheum Theater, the off-Broadway home of Stomp. There was no one in line at the ATMs. I stepped up to a terminal and inserted my card. My balance was $84.66. I tottered it over by 420s, each dealt out in crisp new currency. The sequential serial numbers so fresh the ink stood high like braille. My transaction receipt recorded the time as 15:14. Outside, I stood facing the intersection. Across 2nd Avenue was the Gem Spa newsstand. Cigarettes, hundreds of magazines, and egg creams made round the clock. North of that, the ubiquitous Gap. And on the opposite corner, a Dallas BBQ, white tables and chairs set up on the busy sidewalk, diners cordoned off from the wildlife by an ineffectual plastic rope. On my corner, a man in a knitted stocking cap and a long, flimsy beard like cotton candy had 3 card tables set up along the curb, selling joss sticks in row upon row of paperbacks. A. Fair, Margaret Millar, and Robert Bloch caught my eye, but I had a backlog of books at home to read. Maybe that's what I would do now that I'd recovered my watch, catch up on my reading. Every book $1, the ZZ Top wannabe lazily informed me. He didn't look like he could break a 20, and if he could break it, then he didn't need my dollar. I started back to my place, walking up 2nd Avenue. In front of Vasilka's Ukrainian restaurant on the southeast corner of 9th Street, another man, identically grungy, slouched behind the same sort of setup, a folding table covered with books. But as I came closer, I saw around the corner a film crew of 17 people gathered behind halogen lamps and a 35mm movie camera, slowly rolling forward along 12 feet of aluminum track. There were cables and silver suitcases, a buffet table with hot coffee and sandwiches, and an ice chest underneath. Tourists and late lunchers watched the action. Someone behind the camera yelled, "Cut!" I felt like going back to the other guy and telling him they were stealing his bit, but I was a fine one to talk, a living pastiche. I kept walking, head down, tuning out the world. I didn't notice the Art Deco silver peak of the fantastic Chrysler building far in the horizon. Ordinarily, it's my favorite sight walking home. I crossed over to East 10th Street to Abe Leibowell Park, named in memory of the 2nd Avenue deli owner shot and killed one morning making his deposit. Case yet to be solved. I looked up to the steeple clock, but couldn't see it for the overhang of leaves. Sitting at the foot of the spiky black fence was a small lady wearing a cornflower print kerchief around her head, her face like that of a young Gandhi. She bounced loose change in a cardboard coffee cup. "How you doing today?" she asked, before looking up and seeing for herself. "Oh my, what happened to you?" "Accident." "Oh, you should be lying down or something." "Thanks," I said. I dropped her all my spare change, a dime and 3 pennies, guilty again with $80 hot in my pocket. I hope she wouldn't look in the cup. Exhibiting perfect street etiquette, she didn't. At it so long, could probably tell by the weight anyway. "Thank you," she said. "You have a nice day now and take it easy." Crossing 11th, I looked to my left where it all started the night before. So short time ago. Leaning against a parking meter was a young, old-faced woman, her face caked in flesh tone and sloppy red lipstick, like she'd been chewing beets. She caught sight of me and immediately hustled over, jutting distorted hip bones and swinging her arm out in front of her like a speed skater building momentum. She rasped, coming nearer, "Hey, honey, want a date?" I smiled, lowered my chin and said, "No, thank you," then kept walking, head down, thinking, not unless we can go Dutch. I was stopped in my tracks by a pair of baggy corduroys and 2 dusty, torn sneakers blocking the sidewalk, forcing me to look up at a stained orange man's jersey and a pimply white kid with dirty blonde hair. No one I knew. He held out cupped hands to me, saying, "Please, change, so I can get some food, mister?" A soft touch. I reached for my pocket, then remembered only the 420s. "Sorry, man, I don't got it." I stepped around him and kept going. He kept pace. "Oh, come on, man, 20 cents. I gotta eat food. Only 20 cents. "I don't have it, sorry." "Hey, I saw you give some to that black woman. Is that 'cause I ain't black?" I laughed. Look, I really don't have it to give. Oh, come on, 20 cents. All I want is 20 cents for food. I looked at him again. This time I saw it. The feverish, junky face, unmistakably devoid of humanity. It was like making eye contact with a bacteria cell. Hungry, all right. He was hunger itself, probably Mr. Starvation when he was at home. I said to him, I said no. Oh, come on, you fucking yuppie. I stopped dead and turned about and faced him. Rage vomited up from nowhere, and I raised my hand instructively. No! He walked smack dab into me, and I felt his sweatshirt's crusty letters flaking off on my hand. I shoved him back. It was about as hard to do as clearing a path through a beaded curtain, and as futile. The pimply kid hopped up and down, agitatedly screaming, "Don't touch me! Don't ever touch me, asshole! I'll kick your fucking ass if you ever touch me!" Yeah, right. I walked away, leaving my back exposed. Whatever was coming, I deserved it for stopping in the first place. Should have just plowed through him. Nothing happened, though. When I got to my door and looked back, the kid was hustling farther down the street, hitting up two old ladies for spare change. They finally gave up some shiny quarters to make him stop following them. The kid gazed down intently at the coins cradled in his palm, as if their arrangement there foretold his immediate future. The sight of him poured accelerant on my rage. I hate junkies. I hate them. My hands shaking, I put the key in and entered my building, glad to close the door behind me again. I stood in the entryway, rattled. On top of everything, the irony was not lost on me. I had just gotten through telling Jimmy about my friend getting off heroin, but Mark didn't beat it alone. People had helped him. I didn't even know how to want to become that kind of person, because every time I looked inside of me, all I saw was I hate junkies. I couldn't get past it. I took a deep breath and let it out again, ragged. Silly, letting it get it to me like that. Well, I had it. Xenophobia or recognition. Mostly it was his face, I guess. That vacant, anonymous, unanimous junkie gaze. Nothing in the eyes but black holes, physically incapable of giving anything back, even a speck of light. A functional non-human, no longer participant in anything, not even in the junk it fed on. Heroin's not a shared addiction. Junkies can't share. Not because they don't want to, but because of the gnawing regret hours later that they just gave it away. The charity of it slipping out of their grasp, remembered like acid burning off their fingerprints, destroying identity. I guess we most despise in others what we see in ourselves and hate and battle. Still, that kid had a lot to learn about surviving in the city. Never ask for pity from the needy. It always warrants contempt. Instead, ask for our help. We understand that, being wretched ourselves. And then, well, you do what you can. I checked my mail.